celebrated Emmeline Stankhurst will accompany on the pianoforte.
All right, folks, it's time for Shiny Side Out with David Dunger and Mecky. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here. Take it away, guys.
Welcome to Shiny Side Out with Dave.
And Mecky.
Who wasn't muted. Live from the City Studios in Australia. If you didn't know, Revolution Radio has a chat room. We're in there right now, and you can be too. Go to freedomslips.com. You can listen and chat from there. Check out our website, shinysideout.net, for more info, and also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. There are heaps of ways to listen to the station. If you live in Kentucky, tune in to WZZR 101.3 FM. If you're anywhere else in the world, in the entire world, via one of these apps, Revolution Radio, TalkStream Live, TuneIn.com, Radio Tuner, Spreaker, iHeart, Live 365, and our very own app, Shiny Side Out. At home, you can listen to us via a Grace Tabletop digital radio or driving around in a General Motors vehicle with a receiver-enabled radio. All are revolutions in radio. If you want a CD of our last year's shows, check out the station's website for details. I think they're only $30, and it's last year's show. It's pretty cool if you want that. The number to call in if you're in the USA is 347-688-2902, or via Skype you can just simply add Freedom Screen. All one word. Solaris had a great show again. Yet again, I was listening to it, doing the washing up, preparing for my show, doing the washing up. And that was a lot of fun. So once again, and a lot of kudos in the chat room too, by the way, going on for Solaris' show. It's amazing. That, you know, and this is the quote. The quote says, "Yeah, I mean all of the shows too, by all host, best in months. And thank you, James, and thank you, Solaris. Great show. Best I've heard in months." So I think it's amazing that, you know, we're getting this really good feedback from everyone. Well, not really amazing. And the show's been, the station's been about for about 3 years. Correct me if I'm wrong. And it's developed. This thing has developed, and it's moving. It's a road show. This thing is awesome, and we're just greatly appreciative of the station for giving us airtime, and thank you everyone for who is our fans. Thank you to everyone. I think Mecky managed to survive once again. Another week. Mecky, how's your week been?
Yeah, look, interesting as always. Of course, you know, and you're running like a hamster in the in the wheel that is life of the corporations. No, it's all good. It's all good. So you work, you live, you spend money. You try to spend as little as you can, though, because you want to escape the rat race, right? That's really the key thing here. Having said that, in Australia specifically, it has been a very turbulent week. We've had our terror alert raised. Not only that, we had the biggest anti-terror operation in Australian history being conducted in my neighborhood. Right, I live in Western Sydney, and these most of the 800 police and security forces that were involved were actually jumping around in my backyard. Well, not in my backyard.
Did you
literally?
Were you woken by the helicopters?
I heard helicopters. They didn't wake me. I don't sleep much, but no, there was yeah, right.
It's hard to wake the undead. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but but the guy at work, his neighbors were arrested. Well, not say neighbors, people living down the street. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that was interesting. Again,
Well,
we're going to talk a bit more about that, I think. But
yeah, let's just add to it. But
Okay.
To give you some perspective, 800 police were involved in the parallel raids on a number of properties, houses, and while 15 people were taken from their houses during these raids, only two were charged.
yeah.
I still haven't heard whether the other 13 people have been released yet, or whether they're still looking for more information to lay some charges onto those people as well. But we've seen protests, Mekhi, as well, from the Islamic, the Muslim community, and
It's
I want to stay one step away from the turmoil that is evolving from this, and this is what Mekhi and I like to try to do, is try to stay objective on this one, and I want to treat this like I'm a sports commentator. Yeah.
Look, it's a tough one though, and it's a very complex issue. So the problem here is this, right? These guys that were arrested, or the guys that had the raids launched against them, were accused of wanting to plan attacks in the same vein as the one that we saw in London. You know, where a couple of extremists jumped a British soldier,
Yes.
and killed him in the street. So that apparently that was what was being planned. The Parliament House in Canberra, which is some 300 kilometers south of Sydney, was also meant to be targeted. So I did see an increased police presence in the area over the last few days still.
Throughout the city as well. Yep.
Yeah, correct. But see, this is the issue, and Solaris and I actually had a bit of a chat around this as well, and a bit of exchange of ideas here. This is the truth. Now, there are extremists, and I'm against any ism. Okay, any ism doesn't work for me. It just doesn't. You got to think for yourself. But let's say you have an ism. Okay, fair enough. Don't be extreme about it. In this particular instance, it happens to be Islamist extremists. They're as bad as any other extremist, and it will take the other Muslims, the moderate or regular type Muslims, if you will, to stand up and oppose them. That's what it will take to not have this escalate any further. Because trust me, everybody just wants to get along and to live their own life and whatever, right? But I do not wish to live in a country that is governed by Sharia. I have no desire to live under the rule of Quran, and half my family is Muslim. Okay, so I know what I'm talking about. Moderate, nonetheless, because as you might know, I'm half Turkish. So it is not something I desire for Australia or anywhere else. If people come to a country, and Australia is an immigration country, if you come to a country, you should adopt the mainstream culture. You don't have to sell out. You don't have to give up who you are. Absolutely not. But you have to integrate. You should try to speak the language, right? You should try to understand the customs. You don't have to follow those customs. At home, you can do whatever you like. Within your community, you can certainly, observe your own festivals, and that's all great. And other communities do that. I mean, we got Chinese New Year. Okay, we got Hari Raya.
We celebrate with all the other communities.
Yeah.
With their celebrations, like the Chinese New Year. It's awesome.
Correct. So it's not necessary to be completely isolated or insular or even ghettoized, right? You don't have to live in a ghetto. But by the same token, I would not expect you to come to this country, or any other country for that matter, and try to make it into a country that you just left. Okay, I'm going to sound really reactionary here. So if that's your objective, to turn Australia into another caliphate or into Saudi Arabia of some sort, go back to where you came from, please.
That is highly controversial.
I know.
For Mekhi to advertise his standpoint. I agree with it, but I think it's also the fault of the nation in which the people are arriving into.
Yes.
It is. I know that in Japan, there's regions where there are quite a lot of Australians that live. That's not to say that they're all doing it, or that it's the Japanese government that's failing in that regard. But there's a derogatory term used for Australians who are in Japan, for instance, and
Yes.
it's the N word in the US for
Yes.
African Americans. That's what they're using as an equivalent, but it's a different word. It means it's not very nice. So
Yes.
in Australia, we've allowed pockets of a particular community nationality, say, to expand and grow into a small version of that country. Now, we saw the same thing, and I mentioned this on Facebook. Anyone who knows me on Facebook, I had lengthy discussions about this, and that is that the Irish were and I've got Irish heritage, so I can say this openly. The Irish were being blamed for gang violence in New York in the very early days.
Yep.
There isn't a particular kind of people that it's isolated to. I think that the mistake is made that my esteemed co-host mentioned, that is that you should attempt to integrate. Now, the lack of integration causes an insulation whereby it's us and them. Now, the only reason there's us and them is because of our mistake. It's the country's mistake to not to prevent the pockets from growing, because it's natural that you want to, I'm going to move to a certain country. I wonder where there's more people like myself. It's natural. People will join groups. But to live under Sharia law, no, I don't think that's the case. If I went to another country like, say, Saudi Arabia, who has even stronger laws than most other countries, I have to do what they say. I don't say, well, you know what, I'm going to have enough Australians in a group to say, let's be damned if we're going to follow any of their laws, right? We have to. We're not excluded. We're in their territory. We go by their laws. So, and that's why we can't help the poor, I should say poor, the people who choose to do drug trafficking into any other country, because once you leave our borders, you go into someone else's country, you're bound by their laws. So we know that there's people marrying children in this country. It's come up, it's gone. They've done those cases have come past the law courts, where you're not allowed to marry someone that young, and any interactivity with that person becomes an illegal event. And they've been bad. So what I was trying in my Facebook discussions this week, and I'll tell you, Meki, to be honest, there are very few people who are willing to give an opinion.
Yeah.
I put questions out there saying, ISIS isn't all that bad, and I wanted a discussion out of it. And then I started comparing them to South America, where people are, being kidnapped and for ransom. Yeah. The escalation worldwide of the ISIS problem is now slowly feeding more and more information out to us in this new crusade we have against another religion. And I see this. I saw a French propaganda piece released this week, which was actually made pre the banning of the burqa in France. I looked at the timeline. So they had a law passed to ban the burqa, and to get that passed, they wanted to polarize the people against Muslims, and so that they allowed the TV stations to put pieces together, put packages together, and they aired them, and this one of them was awful, truly awful. But guess what? It's back. They're playing it again. They're playing this, and it's this polarization again, and I hate it. I'm going to use the word every time it comes up, and it annoys me because, it's a free world. It's driven by insane people, yeah?
Yes.
megalomaniacs. People, it's insane at the top. It shouldn't be. I think I was trying to argue with some people. I wanted people to talk about it. And one of the things, I'm very passionate about this, by the way, you might have been able to tell. And I said, any teenager between, 16 and 22 thinks whatever their parents are stupid and wrong. Everything that they do, they want to try and prove themselves something else. They want to prove themselves to be part of the world, and they're gonna choose one of these options. And whether you're just using music to rebel, whether you're choosing a particular clothes style to rebel, you might get earrings or tattoos or whatever it is that's within your scope to pursue it. You might have a fast car or a done-up car. That might go against your parents' beliefs. But people only need the hint or a whiff of something, and they're going to pursue it. And I think that by airing all of this stuff, and Meki, I heard that the information they had, I'll just take it back, that they had on the 15 people that were taken from their homes, they had that information for months, and they sat
Correct.
on it.
Yes, you're right. Now there's
It was
and you know what the
convenient, wasn't it?
No, it was
timed well.
You have to, exactly. You have to look at it in the larger picture here. So what is the larger picture? Dave is right in saying that they had the information. They could have arrested these guys at any time in the last few months. And I don't know how many months, let's call it 3, 4, 5 months. It doesn't really matter.
Yep.
They chose now. Why did they choose now? Now, what has happened in the larger world? We've just committed 600 troops to the actions in Syria. Well, I should correct myself, to the actions in northern Iraq, potentially Syria, right? Mm-hmm. Together with the military effort that the Americans are putting together.
Yes.
Now, and all of a sudden you go, let's do that, because obviously there's a terror threat here, and the groundswell of the community will go, good thing we're sending 600 guys over there, including special forces. Special forces do not sit on their hands, guys. That's not, make no mistake about that. So again, this is a very complex thing, and once we go through the timeline for our show, and I'm going to say the date 9/11, mm-hmm. which and we have to go back. In fact, some 10 to 15 years prior to that, the Muslims have been used as the ignition points. Mm-hmm. Okay, we will see how the Americans and the oil companies have trained and in fact infiltrated the terror organizations. We will now see how ISIS and even homegrown terrorism, both in America as well as in Australia and possibly in Europe, was actually encouraged by internal security operations and security services, right? Mm-hmm. So right now, and I will repeat this, right? Do not become the linchpin, do not become the focal point for violence. Oppose the extremists, which may very well be paid by someone else. Mm-hmm. You remember those protests that happened in the States when the young African-American kid was shot?
Yes.
Now, we hear, again, this is what we hear. I have no solid evidence that there were instigators in the crowd that turned it violent.
That's Reddit.
They wanted this to turn violent. A lot of demonstrations which start out peacefully turn violent because the government or whoever wants to, I guess, squash those protests, mm-hmm. Will do that. And they have done it before. It's nothing new. It's really old tactics. I mean, this was done in ancient Rome, guys, okay? You get some agitators into the crowd,
It's nothing new. Yeah.
No, it isn't. So it is very, very important that the Muslims that don't want any part of it should very loudly and clearly say so. And you're right, Dave. It's very difficult to get people to say anything. Now, in France, for example, that you mentioned, you know why the French authorities are so quiet about these things? Because the Muslim minority has become a large voting minority.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot. In fact, the current, I think it's the Liberal government, correct me if I'm wrong, the Liberal government in power there rode the Muslim vote for quite a significant part of the way. So it was very important for their win, overall electoral win in France there. Yep. Similar things are happening here and elsewhere as well.
I thought, from what I'm not trying to correct you, but I heard that it was the socialist vote that was the support.
Socialist.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Who were the driving force behind, and they tipped the balance in favour of them. So that's why they're being quiet, even though I heard this week already that France jets, what are they called? Not the Tornado. Anyway, that they've already struck targets in northern Iraq.
Hmm.
So the thing that I was hearing this week since we aired last week was that Syria hadn't agreed to any of this, and that Bashar had ordered his troops to fire on any US planes flying over his territory. He doesn't agree with this, and arming the rebels is the US's goal. They want to arm the rebels in Syria because the government isn't pro this activity. So, imagine, Mekki, just with me, can you just play along for a sec, right?
I'm with you.
Imagine if China was giving weapons to and training people within the US to fight in some kind of action or war. I just can't believe that would be allowed. I mean, what would be the outcry globally if China started to supply weapons to someone within the US?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. This is you know, you hit the heart of the problem here, right? Now there's one set of rules for the big boys, and there's a whole different set of rules for the other big boys, and then there's no rules at all for us who just live under their rules. So you're right, and you can't. It's actually it's an act of war. If you're arming a group within another country to fight that country, it's an act of war. In fact, the US have stated they don't want to work with the Assad regime, right? They tried to get rid of him not too long ago. So it's a very difficult diplomatic situation for the US. But of course, that's the way it's meant to appear. What it really is, it's a pretext. It's a pretext to put boots on the ground and get some military hardware into Syria, and ideally get rid of Assad. I mean, ISIS has the same goal as the US. I would not. Aren't you curious, guys, as to why Obama isn't pushing harder? I mean, these guys are beheading people in public. Okay, Saddam Hussein didn't do that. He wasn't crazy. Okay, he wasn't a nice guy. He wasn't a nice guy, but he wasn't crazy. But they went after him like there's no tomorrow.
That's right.
Okay, now these guys, they kill hundreds. They execute hundreds of soldiers. And then they post it on YouTube. Boom, there it is, right? Or wherever they go.
Yeah.
But no, Osama is still holding back. Oh yeah, no, we're going to bomb them a bit here and there, you know, yeah, sure. But we're not going to commit any people on the ground. Isn't that strange? I think what he's waiting for is for the Assad regime to collapse. All right? I mean, these ISIS fighters, they're extremely well equipped. There's apparently 30,000 of them. That's 30,000 soldiers, hardened fighters, been fighting for 20 years and longer.
Yeah.
Okay, in the Balkans, in Chechnya, in Iraq, and Afghanistan, they've been fighting and fighting and fighting. And Obama goes, yeah, you know, the time isn't right. You guess what? That's what Chamberlain said when they didn't confront Hitler. The time isn't right. You know, yeah, let him have Austria. Let him have Austria, sure.
Mekki, just imagine if one of Assad's troops happens to shoot dead an American or one of these coalition troops on the ground, because Obama said he isn't going to, and he's very careful with his words. He isn't going to commit any boots on the ground. But but who's got the boots on the ground? Us.
Yep.
We got 800. France. You name it.
It's the coalition of the willing, yet again, the coalition of the willing. Look, I'm all for opposing ISIS, ISIL, IS, Islamic State. I don't care what.
Yep.
Yeah, but look at where they came from. Who's actually funding them? Okay, look at where they draw their strength from. It's not the local population. They're terrified. I can tell you that.
Yeah, that's true.
And yeah, they're ruthless. They essentially want to kill everybody who's a non-Muslim. You know, I mean, we spoke about this last. It's a very multicultural, multi-religious area of the world. I mean, most of the world religions started there, right? The major ones, anyway. So it's very diverse, and this is just another, I guess, another attempt to. Just concrete all that over and turn into an Islamic caliphate. No, that is only on the surface. That's the reason. It's really just about being able to get into Syria. You know, potentially then occupy all of Central Asia as well, because this is where the price is, and we're gonna talk about that as well. The overt price, the oil, the gas. Geopolitically, the area that they're in right now is one of the most important in the world. It is strategically paramount that the great powers, be it China, Russia, or the US, I don't really care, have a foothold there and have an ability to extract the resources that are there. Now, that's on the surface. Now, but this is the thing, guys. This is the thing. Every time you get to the truth, they give you a red herring. And the whole oil thing is another red herring. Okay?
Completely.
And focus on the deeper, like, dig deeper, because a lot of people are dissatisfied. They're like Dave and I, look around, this doesn't feel right, splinter in the mind, there must be something wrong. So they find a conspiracy and they go with that. Oh yeah, that's what it is.
It's the first one.
Correct. Dig deeper and deeper and deeper, and you will come to things that you will find fantastic. It is almost like science fiction or fantasy. It can't be true. How could it possibly be true, you think, right? If you've been listening to the station, not just us, of course, but all the other hosts, you're exposed to a plethora of diverse opinions and information. And some of the stuff is fantastic. I mean this in the sense of fantasy, right? It is unbelievable. So,
Mekki,
go on. Yeah, sorry, I'm ranting.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Let me just pull it back for a second. If we don't remember that there was Syrian issues, remember the sarin gas attack that was faked by the US? It was planned more than 6 months in advance, and I spoke about that on air. And then suddenly, the US was, we're going to go in there, and suddenly they just backed right away. And the talk from Russia said that Russia said it will retaliate if the US goes into Syria.
Yep.
Now, we all saw that. Mekki and I saw that, and I know that our fans saw the same thing, and that is, our listeners said that the US backed away from a greater threat. What was it? Now, what was the threat? What actually occurred? What discussion occurred for the US for the first time in history to back away from a threat that they were going to launch? It was all on, here we go. And it was Russia said that they will retaliate if you go in. Now, do we want that? Does the world want it? Is this where we're headed? The US hasn't intervened in the Ukraine and Russia thing. I think the US, this is my personal opinion, is completely scared of Russia and China's allies in the next world conflict. I mean, it's frightening. It's a frightening prospect. And even though no one wants to really, truly go there, and they're avoiding everything as much as they can, they had the ticket last time with the sarin gas attacks. Everything was there. They had the ticket. Everyone was against it. What happened?
Look, the truth is this, right? On the surface, that is absolutely correct. If you are following realpolitik, you look at politics and diplomacy and try to make a sense of it, then Dave, you're 100% correct. The US would be insane to start a hot war, a running war with China and potentially Russia, or Russia and potentially China. Either way, it doesn't matter. But we can see with everything that is happening. In fact, proxy war, you're right, is okay, like Vietnam or Korea, that is correct. But what we can see is they're being drawn into a hot conflict. Everything the last couple of years is pointing toward that, right? The Crimea, the Ukraine, the shooting down of the Malaysian airliner, right? The situation in the Middle East and where the battle lines are drawn, the conflict that you saw developing in the China Sea, between Japan and China, where Japan was being backed by the US. There are a lot of ignition points. And again, we've said this before, that the game is for a large conflict. There's no other way out of this economic quagmire we're in, at least for the states. There isn't. There's no other way out. This also hooks in, of course, into the depopulation agenda. I know a lot of people, will roll their eyes and go, "Yeah, sure, that sounds crazy." Guys, it's not crazy. It has been. Now, I want to make this point. It has been the stated foreign policy aim of the United States since the 1950s to encourage population control.
Yes.
Population and birth control. Okay, that is not removed from population reduction at all. Population reduction is just the next logical step in that program, right? It's like diplomacy. You talk, and then that doesn't work. Then you threaten, that doesn't work. Then you put in embargoes, that doesn't work. You start putting your troops on the border, that doesn't work. You start a war. That's the road, right? That's diplomacy, and this is the same. So you start handing out birth control. You start educating people, on the consequences of these things. You might even encourage some diseases to spread. AIDS, maybe. What? That's crazy talk, Mackie. Sure.
No, it's not.
And so, but none of that works. None of that. In fact, the diseases out there and the natural disasters and even the smaller wars are not enough to reduce the population. So what do? Well, a war is good, but even that is not enough. It has to be a big war, right? And that destroys a lot of stuff. Yeah, look, it might still happen, but it's a lot easier if there was a disease.
Because all the stuff is still there.
All the stuff is still there. Ebola, we're going to talk about that in a little while, is there now. Now, the problem, of course, is that disease, being a biological unit, mutates, it changes, right? So one vaccine is not good for all forms of Ebola, at least not that I know of. In fact, there's no vaccine, but if they had one, the elite that is, they have to be worried about the mutating virus. But we're slightly off track. So let's get back to the situation in the Middle East and Australia as well here. So we need to have common sense here, guys. Just because a Muslim extremist who happens to call himself Muslim, is doing something, doesn't mean as other Muslims you have to support him. Not at all. All Germans were not behind the Nazi party either. Some of them actually ended up in camps. Too bad, for them. But they actually at least stood up and said, "No, I don't want to be part of this. I'm against it. Thank you very much." So this is where we are, guys. You have to differentiate yourself. You have to make a clear choice. That goes for Muslims in America. That goes for Muslims in Europe. Do you really want to live in an ISIS-like state? Do you want to live in a country where your daughters have to wear headscarves, which, by the way, are not religious? The headscarf and the covering up of women is cultural and predates Islam by millennia. Okay, the burqa and all that is not a Muslim garb. It is not a Muslim garb. It happened to be in the Middle East. That happened to be the thing. Okay, you look at other Muslim communities; they don't do that. Okay. Anyway, so simple point that I have for you guys is this: do not be caught in the web, in the net, and of other extremists, of extremists in general. Right? You have a belief system that is great, that's wonderful. I applaud you for it, but do not, by silent consent, okay, endorse the action or actions of the extremists. That's really the key thing here, guys.
Yep, that's so true. Mickey makes a tremendous point, and remember to be discerning about the information and your information sources, so that you're not just blankly believing what you're being told. That is our greatest message from Shiny Side Out to everybody.
Yep.
Because if that was the case, then I love the leader, and can I have another big screen TV, please? Yeah, just so I can watch more of your propaganda TV. The word propaganda is not isolated to to dropping leaflets over your enemy. It occurs every single day. It keeps us in our box. It stops us from asking questions. So
yes, sir.
So what you want to do everything you can to ask more questions. So one of the questions that's come up this week was the Scottish referendum on separating from England, and I've found a bunch of links, and I've seen a number of videos. Which there's quite a good one, but it's a compilation of all of the things that were wrong with the election, and one of those was the no table covered in yes votes. Piles and piles and piles, like a good, I don't know how many inches that, but 10 inches worth of individual bits of paper, all with yes ticked on them, on a table that said no. Yeah. Because they count the pile. The pile's a particular amount of votes, and they just count the piles and go, yep, that's that many. I saw one official writing on his own at a table. He's counting them, he's putting them into piles, and he started writing on a couple of them. Maybe people put blank ones in, and he went, just make no on that one, how about that one, yeah. Not only that, but there was another one where a lady was sorting them. Now remember, there's only two choices. There's a box that says yes and a box that says no. In front of her are two piles. One pile labelled yes and one pile labelled no. She picked one up, put it on the no, picked one up, put it on the yes, and then went, oh, hang on, looked through the yeses and went, oh, yeah, there's it. No, and there's also, and she swapped the piles around. How? Is there not testing on the people's intelligence to be able to work out a choice of yes or no? Were they pre-screened? I hope so. My goodness. So there's marches now going on in Scotland because the people started talking to each other and went, you know what? Actually, no, you're right. I voted yes as well. I voted yes to separating. How come all of those votes aren't being counted? So they really do need to do it. As we know, there was the electronic version of this was done when the Al Gore and Bush Jr. were being voted in Miami, Florida, wasn't it, Mecky?
Absolutely.
And the guy, the programmer, came out and testified in front of Congress and said, I wrote the program that swaps the votes around.
Yep.
You click on the first letter and the fourth letter and the little word at the top, it's hidden, you don't know it, and suddenly you flip, it flips the votes over electronically. You can do anything electronically. Unbelievable.
And there's no trail. There's no paper trail, guys, anymore, right?
That's right.
That is the problem here.
Even in Australia, our own voting practices, we lost thousands of votes. Not only did we lose them, during the recount, they got confused. They lost thousands and thousands. They lost boxes and boxes and boxes of these ballot papers, and half of them weren't sealed. Not half. There was quite a few that weren't sealed. So I just think it's extraordinary that we have, this time. That's right. One of the voting locations, one of the largest ones, had 3 or 4 fire drills. Someone's pushed the fire emergency button, and everyone had to be evacuated. And they announced to the people when they returned back into the room, and all the votes were gone off the desk. Mecky, all the votes were removed from the big tables, and they said, police took care of the votes. Police. Why? Why the police? What were the police involved in that for? There should be voting officials. Yeah, it's a fire emergency or whatever, but still, you're meant to have what's called a hostile who can remain. And in fact, if there was an emergency, they could, they could be taken by force by the police or by the fire officers in case of a real emergency. So it's extraordinary. We know that voting fraud goes on. Some people went to vote and were told they were already voted.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know. Yeah, you did. Oh, okay.
Okay, so can I go now? Yeah. They didn't say, oh, look, we'll just find your vote or something like that, because you can't. There's no name. It's anonymous. And we'll remove that one and we'll do another. That was terrible. I had to tell you, Mecky, there was something really weird. There was what washed up onto the Australian beaches this week. Green alien eggs, it looks like. And it's a very weird, it's just one of those off-the-wall stories. I'm just posting in the chat room. Have a look yourself. I also found the Wikipedia that explains what they actually are. So here's some sensationalism by thedailymail.co.uk. Good on you. That's actually pretty cool. The other one, which was sort of terrifying from 4 years ago, sadly, was the North Atlantic current stopping, but that seems to have cranked back up again. I won't bother with that one. Remember, in our promo, Mecca, we talk about fantastic discoveries in science.
Mm-hmm.
Or something new. Chlorophyll drops in the eyes, who have to be acidically balanced to be able to put in your eye, otherwise it'll burn your eye out, actually gives you night vision. And this is discovered.
Really?
Yeah, I kid you not. Who thought that was going to happen? So I'm going to pop that in. They said they were doing tests on on rodents and stuff in very low light conditions, and they failed until they put these drops in, and suddenly they could see again. So they're looking at now being able to make this a pill in which, chlorophyll will fill the eyes so that you can see perfectly at nighttime rather than having
That's
night vision
fascinating.
goggles. Yeah, I thought it was awesome. Now, Ebola. I've been following this. Of course, we've been right, Meki. We have been right. We've been bringing you news about Ebola that no one else has done, and bringing it out and providing the truth on this one, because now you can see that America has gone, ooh, I think it looks like on the outside they're saying, oh, we just discovered this problem is pretty bad, huh? Let's put 3,000 troops into this, because you've got to send troops to Africa, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's another land grab.
Now, hang on. Just focus on the 3,000 troops here. These are 3,000 U.S. citizens that are being sent into harm's way yet again against an enemy which has no, defense. An enemy which you cannot defend against. Ebola has no cure, has no vaccine. So these 3,000, because we already had 4 or 5 Americans work in Africa and come back to the States, potentially bringing Ebola with them to others. Now we have 3,000.
Yep.
3,000. Now, what do you think will happen if this happens? These guys are housed in close quarters. They might even, if they have to go into the cities, there might be some exposure there. How are you going to control that? You can control 4 or 5. You can have negative air chambers and all kinds of wonderful things. How do you control 3,000? The more you send, the more you do, the harder it will be.
I think Meki's right on this one. I think sending 3,000 is a crazy idea. Wouldn't you just employ 3,000 locals to do the work for you? Because what they have to do is build 17 temporary field hospitals, and each one of those will house 100 patients each. It's not much. The field hospital is really not much. It's just a temporary field hospital. It doesn't even have the best conditions inside it. It's a field hospital. It's enough to stitch you up and get you on the way. We've all seen MASH.
Yeah.
This is the place they came from before they went to the 407th. Yeah? So that wasn't a temporary, that's a mobile field hospital, but the temporary ones are just a plastic shed, a plastic, like a tarpaulin with rods holding it up. Now, the risk of having 3,000 people there, they're not sending them to some isolated community. They're sending them to where the danger zone is, and that's so that they can house these patients and try and get this under control. The CDC said before that the website we were looking at said there'd be 18,000 within 6 weeks. And after another 6 weeks, if you keep plotting that exponentially, we're going to get into what the CDC reported this week to be 500,000 people by January.
Yeah, it's only 3 months away, really.
In 3 months, 500,000. It's the CDC telling us this. And this is something that Meki and I found a quote, and I'll give you the quote in a sec. And this one made me shiver, because we're right. The CDC has been lowballing the transmission of this. Okay? They said a couple of things. They said the 72-hour quarantine has made the virus worse by isolating people together from the same family. They've now contaminated the rest of the family. They're going door to door with infrared temperature monitors measuring their foreheads, and if they're infected, they were not told what they're doing to those people, right? So that's a quarantine situation. It may as well be, it's just like what do you call it, Meki? Martial law. It's the same kind of thing as martial law. Imagine this in your town, if this happens. So what you want to do is Google PLOS outbreaks, and you'll get some more info on the worsening situation. But here's the quote. There may be other reasons for the worsening of the outbreak spread, including the possibility that the virus has become more transmissible.
Yeah. Now, more meaning here potentially, in my mind, airborne. Potentially, I'm not saying it is, but it was already highly transmissible. Okay, it's a highly infectious disease to start with. Now, the only way it becomes more transmissible if it finds another way to be transmitted, which now might point to we've spoken about the virus surviving in little drops of fluid in the air, being suspended in the air, right? Now, not truly airborne, but airborne enough. Now, what if those little droplets of fluid were no longer necessary and the virus could simply survive on the air currents on its own? That would mean it had become truly airborne. If that is true, and you're sending your 3,000 troops in there, and again, Dave, just to harken back to the martial law, maybe those 3,000 troops are there to enforce or help enforce the martial law if it comes to it, you know?
Yeah.
So, but you know what? Once panic breaks out and people flee, and make no mistake, people are very resourceful, right? It'll spread even further. If you look at the actual the chart of it, it is astonishing. Only a few cases, 3-4 cases, you know, a few months ago, all of a sudden thousands, and close to 3,000 dead now. Yeah, and by January we'll have 500,000 infected. 500,000 infected with a mortality rate of 50%.
So think about this as some numbers. They're awesome numbers, right? So we have 30 people per day being turned around by the hospitals that have Ebola. Not the hospital have Ebola, but the people turning up have Ebola, and they've been turned away to go back home again because they can't treat them. So what they're using, so the 72-hour thing was just to count the number of people that were infected to the best of their abilities by going door to door, isolating them in their own houses to do this. But sadly, all that does is render that family more susceptible to catching it from the other people. So, you know, it's a shame. That's all I can say. The rest of that quote says, but it's also possible that the quarantine control of efforts actually made the outbreak spread more quickly by crowding people together in unsanitary conditions.
Yes.
And that was the research professor, Sherry Towers of Arizona State University. Okay, you're going to believe your own people, I'm going to tell you. The universities have... In my experience, the researchers inside universities are doing a much better job than anyone else on this. They're getting more info out than anyone else.
Yep. Now, at least, well, they're still able to do that, right?
Well, yeah,
we'll see.
until they become head of their department, and then they end up with a research grant, and then they're stuck within their realm to drive that grant to its natural outcome. So, Meki, I'm sorry I've driven this news almost for the whole hour, but
No. This is actually important, Dave. This stuff is important, and today's show ties into it quite well because we're talking about things we're still suffering from and are part of the overall game plan. So, no, Dave, this is very important.
Do you know what? Honestly, keep yourself informed. And we've seen a number of cases in Australia, even a toddler being admitted to hospital and declared that it didn't have Ebola. There's a lady in England who has been given the test version of the inoculation against Ebola, the current strain. That they apparently do have it. That's funny, isn't it? That they do have a vaccine against it, and she's the first human test subject. Why, I don't know. But all you have to do is worry. I think you have to worry about this thing. It's huge, and for Meki mentioned this in a previous show. If you're new to us, you'll hear us say vectors. This has all the vectors to be the next Spanish flu, or the next plague, or Black Death, whatever you want to call it.
Absolutely. Now, and it ties in with what we're seeing today as well, and something that was initiated in earnest in 2001. Okay, this was the linchpin for all these operations to some extent. It of course goes back further. It goes back to the beginning of the century. It goes back to World War II, World War I. You can actually follow it back through the ages. You can go back, if you really wanted to, 5,000 years. It took a lot of planning, but we are now at the pinnacle of what these guys have tried to do to us, and they're almost there. it wasn't always easy for them. Yeah, we spoke about the banking system, the banking wars, things like that. It wasn't always easy. There were some setbacks, but right now they have us pretty much where they want us. The vast majority of the human race is too poor to do anything about it, and the ones that are not don't care. We just don't care because we are okay. Yeah, that's not good enough, guys. Though it's not good enough to be okay now. And I'm going to say it. I want to see if we're going to be kicked off the air. I'm just going to say I don't care anymore. So we are talking about we could continue to talk about 9/11 after the break. We just kind of got 10 minutes.
Yep.
Just very quickly. Last week we did shared the timeline with you. Very interesting that Osama bin Laden was fingered within hours as the main perpetrator, and by the end of the day, he was it. By the end of the day, it was him. Okay. So the intelligence apparatus, which had apparently failed so spectacularly on the day, was able to pinpoint the perpetrator within hours. Yeah, could not help us prevent it, but had him fingered in a matter of moments. We did share with you 9/11 for Dummies as well. 5 interesting questions. Why did WTC Building 7 fail? Why was it pulled? What happened? The Pentagon has no plane debris. What? Shanksville, number 3, has no plane debris. What? Where are the bodies? Where are the body bags? Where's the debris? Where are the engines? These weigh tons, these engines. They're aircraft engines, guys. They're not little lawnmowers, okay? No debris. 9, okay, and then the towers. The planes and the collapse. It was the first time a steel-framed building had collapsed. And none have collapsed since, and some have burned for days. Yeah, sure, it's the fuel that burned high, weakened the steel, blah, blah, blah. But why did the towers pulverize? They pulverized. Did you see that, guys?
I've got the slide of the Mexican building that burned for more than 24 hours, and it was still standing after the flames went out on their own.
Yeah. That's nuts. I'm sorry. It's insane for all these girders to fall simultaneously. But not only that, they failed in such a fashion that the towers didn't topple over and destroy a lot more real estate. They destroyed a bit, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But if those towers had actually fallen over, right, they would have destroyed Manhattan. Closed the island. Thank you very much. No, they fell in on their footprint almost in a whole rubble of ash. How does that happen? How? Again, I haven't got the answer for you, right? But it's a question and that hasn't been answered yet. And then finally, what we didn't share with you were the perpetrators. We had spent some time around this in a previous show around the profit motive. But just to give you another quick reminder, according to the government, the leader of the 9/11 attacks was former CIA agent Osama bin Laden. We're going to talk about him in a little. You say, what, CIA agent? What? That's crazy. Don't say that, Mackie. And the mastermind operations manager, so the COO of this whole thing was Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, right? He's the only guy that has faced any trial time that I know of for these attacks. They also said that 19 hijackers were involved in the attacks, and the government sponsored and 9/11 Commission concluded that as well. Yes, okay. And as anyone who understands crime investigation knows, one must follow the evidence, and that's where Dave and I are going. We're following the evidence. We're following the profit motive. Who benefits? Yeah. Now the evidence says a lot that the government does not say. The evidence is still speaking loud and clear. It's there for anyone that wishes to see it, and most people do not. That is fine. Actually, it is not fine. Okay, it is anything but fine. Don't be fooled. Don't be the person that doesn't want to know. Now, the alleged evildoers, love that, are dead. Okay, and the Al-Qaeda organization itself is decimated. That's why we need ISIL. We have to have ISIL or ISIS. I don't care, because Al-Qaeda is no longer a threat. Now ISIS is a threat. Brilliant. You always need someone, right? Now, more. They don't appear to have benefited from the attacks at all, except for being notorious. Yeah. Now, but who benefited? I tell you who benefited.
Pull it.
Yes, Silver's pull it. Silverstein, boom. What? Yeah. Oh, not only those, no, but also the warmongers. What? What are you saying, the warmongers? Well, who do you think gets paid when you go to war? Or when we go to war? You don't get paid. All right, I don't get. My taxes pay for it. Thank you very much. Okay. Also, the guys that tried to, I guess, curb civil liberties in the States, but not just in the States, everywhere else in the world as well. Patriot Act 1 and 2, Homeland Security, all that wonderful stuff. In the days after 9/11, okay, there were 2 major wars against Afghanistan and Iraq. Okay, that that came into being, right? Unthinking, and we'll show you what led up to it. It's actually shocking if you look at the timeline. Other researchers have done excellent work in that space. By the way, we're going to share their research with you. Okay, and now it is corporate fascism. You know what? And this is the thing. This is from a different side. So Dave and I have been saying this for a while now. We're saying
that Mekki gets frozen every once in a while when he's talking
America
about Building 7. Oh my goodness. We're almost at the top of the hour.
I can actually see it. I can see it. You know, you got the Skype thing, and it's sometimes it's there, and then it's gone. It's funny, guys. So, but anyway, so no, it's corporate fascism, and other researchers have come to the same conclusion. The Americans are now living in a corporate fascist state. Mm-hmm. Fascism is the ideology for corporations. Hitler was supported by the corporations. You know, IG Metall, Thyssen, you know, all those wonderful German conglomerates, Dynamit Nobel as well. In fact, the evidence is there. Trillions of dollars in profit were made by individuals and corporations. Okay, trillions. We shared some of the statistics, some of the money with you, and you know, the beneficiaries are everywhere in plain sight. You can see them. You can see the beneficiaries everywhere. The people that suffered the most were the American people, and along with the American people, the Iraqi people, right? The Afghani people. You know, it's always the people that just, you know, want to get on with their lives that suffer the most. It's the guys that play on top with your lives and our lives and anyone's lives, really, that reap the benefit. It keeps you in fear. It keeps us in fear. You know, it gives you an enemy to hate against. Ooh, I hate you, good. I hate you. Yeah, let's hate that person over there. It is different. Let's hate him. You know, he hates my freedoms. So what does that mean? The only people hating freedoms are the people trying to curb them. Read the Patriot Acts. I urge you, read them. Look at the powers of FEMA and the Office for Homeland Security. Look at their powers. Look at what they can do. In Australia, it's similar. Our police powers have increased. I don't even know the factor, but by a factor of 20, let's say, whatever. The point is, we are now at a stage where the end game is clear. We can see the end game. The end game is there. Okay, there's no doubt. There can't be any doubt, Dave, in anyone's mind. Surely, right?
Sure.
I mean, you have to be a moron with his eyes or her eyes sewn shut if you cannot see the truth that is so obviously staring you in the face, right? It is about control. It is not so much about control for resources or whatever. No, it's about control over the minds of us, our minds. They want to control our minds because that's the one thing you need to control in order to stay in power. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's where they failed in the past, guys. That's where they failed in the past. They were not able to control everybody's mind. So revolutions happened. Okay, people overthrew the tyrants. They you know, rebelled against you know, tyranny and all that, right? And America was founded on that principle, believe it or not. Okay, I have a lot of time for the Freemasons. Yeah, I know I'm controversial. That's okay, but I do. Because the Freemasons and I have pretty much the same agenda. Not so much the Illuminati or other elite groups, but the Freemasons, at least back then, 200 years ago, were on the right track. And they're much older than that, of course, right? And they may have been infiltrated by now. I don't know, right? It's possible. But the point is, America was founded on the premise of freedom. It was meant to be the new Atlantis, right? Read Bacon. Fascinating stuff. And these people had personal integrity and honor and conviction, something that we lack a lot today. You know, something we don't. It's not really taught anymore. Civil duty or civic duty, Dave. I mean, is there such a thing? We don't really in school. We don't encourage people to become actively involved in community affairs, do we? I haven't seen it. I don't know.
No,
maybe that's the music.
Absolutely.
Don't go away.
We'll see you on the other side of the break, everyone. Don't forget to donate.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
This is Thomas, a.k.a. a Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs to government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
There is no denying the world is awakening. We see it in the global uprisings and demonstrations of the people around the planet and the new way of thinking and living that is arising naturally within each one of us and our communities. I have been a major player in this global shift and movement for over 20 years and have helped tens of thousands of people around the world change their lives and find their voice in order to help create the paradigm change we so desperately need. Join me here at Revolution Radio on the Just Bernard Show every Tuesday at noon Eastern Time for 2 hours of powerful interviews and discussion with some of the most influential visionaries of consciousness, alternative media, and suppressed knowledge. We promise to reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience.
Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or a computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it. I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, phone numbers? Well, squeeze on over to freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here. Thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. If you plan to call in and speak with one of our hosts, please turn down your radio and separate yourself from any background noise and wait for the area code to be called on before you speak. And don't forget, Revolution Radio freedomslips.com is listener supported. So stop by the homepage, freedomslips.com, visit the site support area to help support the host you're listening to's airtime. Thank you. Revolution Radio freedomslips.com, where the truth never sleeps. Revolution Radio. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
You're back with David Mackey's Shiny Side Out on freedomslips.com. That's right, the #1 listener-supported talk radio on the net, just as Hawk said. Since it is listener-funded radio, and you like what you hear, please go to freedomslips.com and push the donate button on the site support page. It's on the left in the chat if you're in there right now. Your donation is greatly appreciated and it helps run this station. Yes, help support our airtime. That's Mecky and mine. Oh, Mecky's just dropped off again. You know, every time we mention the wrong date, the date that the let's say October 13th for that matter, we get knocked off air. So I'd like to say hello to all of the new listeners. Thank you so much, honestly. You know, we've got more and more people that are following us on Twitter or Facebook. Not everyone does the same platforms. Thanks to all the people who tune in when we're on live, and for all those people who are watching our YouTube channel, thank you so much. We enjoy the patronage, and you're free to and welcome to message us via either our website or post in the comments. We do answer every one of them, so go ahead. Also, if you're out and about and you see something you think we might be interested in talking to you about, doing some more research on, or finding out some more stuff about, let me know, and we will endeavour to do some research on it. Today, this is show number 134, and if Meki is back now, yay. Meki,
I'm back.
What's the show number?
It's 430 and 100, sir.
Excellent. That's what I was after.
I'm being kicked off here again. My apologies, guys. This is really strange. Skype just keeps just kicking me off. Ay, ay, ay.
Oh, what are you going to do?
What are you going to do?
I'll tell you, it's not me, and it's every time we mention that date, isn't it, Mickey?
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm going to mention it because it's not going to go away, guys. It's not going to go away. And thank you for reading us in, Dave. I much appreciate that.
That's fine, not a problem.
And we do have to donate, of course. Guys, it's paramount that this station keeps going. As I said, there were some issues with YouTube. Crazy stuff. You can still find us, though, on our channel there. If you're looking for shinysideout.net or shinysideout on YouTube, our shows should come up. Please do support the station by donating. If you want to support our show specifically, that's cool. You can make the donation our name or whatever, but please donate to the show in general. Right? And this is work that's important, needs to go on. It's like street theater. I always give a guy that performs in the street or the girl money, right? Mm-hmm. Because I like that kind of thing. I like it's independent, it's spontaneous, it involves the audience, and it gives people, a glimpse into another reality. It doesn't have to be the office for everybody, right? And this is the same, right? It's a glimpse into something else. I mean, you don't have to agree with everything you hear here, and some of the things you hear here might be wrong. I mean, Dave and I make mistakes. You can correct us. That's cool, and we admit that readily. But at least you get a different view, because we have no interest in propagating someone else's opinion, because no one is paying us to. So, it's it is truly independent radio. I can guarantee that, right? Nobody on this station follows a corporate agenda, as far as I know, right?
Exactly.
But yeah, look,
we're all soapboxing. We're doing the research for you on your behalf. We spend, both of us during the week, we spend a great deal of our time to do it. And if you don't have to do that, well, we've helped you out. If you can listen to what we're bringing forward, you don't have to do the research. You can, by all means, and this is going to segue nicely into the next component. We have a lot of objectors out there who tell us that we're wrong or right, or provide us, with corrections, which is good. Please do it. Don't stop doing that. Meki, there's two groups of people out there, and one group are debunkers, whether they're armchair or serious debunkers for staff. I too, when I get sent things, I go to Snopes, and I do my research. I don't just believe whatever the picture is, or the caption beneath it. So what do we have as far as the 9/11 things that cannot be debunked?
Yeah, look, we give 24 hard facts here about 9/11 that cannot be debunked. We will give them to you in a one-on-one fashion. So Dave will take one, I will take one.
Yeah, awesome.
But as a part of that as well, we're going to focus on next week's show. We're going to focus on a couple of items specifically. I want to quickly say this, so you know what to expect next week as well. One is Osama bin Laden's link to 9/11. I'm going to spend some time with Dave in detail on that next week, and because you'd think, of all the things in the world, that should be easily debunked. Should be the myth that Osama bin Laden is not linked to 9/11. That should be the easiest. I mean, they sent the entire United States Army after him, right? They killed him specifically, right? But you will see in due course that there doesn't seem to be much evidence, if any, linking him to the actual attacks. Right? Now, that's one. There's another couple we will spend some time with. But okay, let's get right into it. because we're in the second hour here. So the first point we have here is that nanothermite was found in the dust at ground zero. Now, what is thermite? Thermite is an explosive, right? It's military grade. Okay.
I know what it is, Meki.
Go ahead.
It's ground aluminium with an oxidizing agent. I won't tell you exact recipe. You can look it up for yourselves. Which, when burnt, burns at an extremely high temperature.
Yep.
All right. So, they're talking. You can have iron oxide or aluminium oxide. That's an oxidizing agent. And when you burn it, it burns so hot that you can have a shaped charge with it, and you can, or shaped charges, you can melt steel, and that's the important component of this. And where was that found? Where was the thermite residue found?
It was in fact in the dust at ground zero. In fact, not only that, there are two other things as well. Three things that are very important here. Number one, there was liquid metal dripping out of the buildings. Liquid metal was dripping out of the buildings, okay, at ground zero there, right? Two, you might remember the girders that were cut at an acute angle, right, allowing for the girders to slide off each other.
Yes.
So the steel girders were cut at an angle, right? You might remember that. And thermite is perfect for that kind of thing. Now, the third thing, rather, is that there was a massive pool of molten metal at the bottom of the World Trade Center, right, which didn't cool
last
for
long,
weeks.
Right? They didn't last long.
No,
there.
only a few weeks, right? So why was there thermite and in fact thermate found at that site? I mean, there's no rational explanation for it, really, if you think about it. I mean, I've seen some debunkers say, it's just other aluminium that was left over, blah blah blah. Sure. No, it is used in building demolitions as well when it comes to cutting the steel girders if you want to do it fast and accurately, right? So that's one thing here that you guys can look at yourself as well.
Yeah, completely. So we've got point number 2, 17. This is my favorite. Thanks, Meki, too, by the way. There's more than 1,700 engineers and architects that support a real independent 9/11 investigation through a single organisation that they've put themselves into, and that is that there are now all of these architects saying, you need to give me the data, because we want to design buildings that don't fall down and that don't succumb to an impact or whatever it is that brought down Building 7, for that matter, as well as Towers 1 and 2. Yeah, so they want to be able to engineer buildings that won't fail, and according to the 9/11 report, it was a failure of the metal. So they go, well, give me the details. Who did the report? And they're getting stonewalled. So it's such a shame that information is not being given out, which means from what they can see is that there's something fraudulent about it.
Now think about this though. I mean, there's 1,700 architects and engineers, people that build. Okay.
Yep.
We're just being pinged in the chat room by Chindolo. We should do our due diligence. We did actually, Chindolo, and I actually saw with my own eyes the metal dripping from the building.
Yep.
Actually, I saw it dripping off, and I also saw the sheared steel girders, right, at an angle. And I also know about the molten pool of metal underneath it. Okay, so if you've got sources that say it isn't so, this is the forum to present that evidence. I will go through it, and in case we are wrong, I will, make that admission next week once I've gone through the material. It's not bogus material because I saw it and it was there. But if you've got another source, Chindolo, I'd be very happy to mention it on air here.
There are also the people who were recovering the materials and spoke about it.
Yes.
All
Correct.
Right. And I also Chindolo makes a good point. Don't use the word collapse. All right.
Well, no. The
building failed. The buildings failed
Yeah,
whether it was intentionally failed or it was just happenstance.
The key thing here is that the official story is the temperature was not hot enough to melt the metal, right, the steel girders, but to weaken them enough structurally so they would become unstable and buckle, which then led to the collapse of the World Trade Center buildings. Okay, that's the official story. The temperature was hot enough not to melt the steel, but to weaken it. Okay, that is the official story. Okay. No, I saw the pictures and video footage as well, Cindolo. But as I said, if you've got other information, I'd be very happy to see it. Now, the key thing here, though, is that 1,700 architects and engineers are not satisfied with the official story. If it was 1, or 2, or 50, or 100, there's 1,700 people that do this for a living, and they don't think that the official 9/11 story holds any water. That's a lot of people. Okay, that's not all the architects in the world, but I mean, again, not everybody would be engaged in this kind of thing. Not everybody would think about it, but there are 1,700 people who did. Okay, and they have nothing to gain by this, by the way. What do they gain, Dave, if they oppose the official story? Nothing, right? It's not like
exactly. That's right.
They're not doing it for profit or It is just a hunger for the truth. No, but I'd be very happy for you to give us the information that you seem to possess that we do not have. The third point we have here is the total collapse of WTC-7 in 6.5 seconds at free fall acceleration. And NIST admits 2.25 seconds here. Larry Silverstein used the term pull it. He later said, I misspoke, I was under the strain, sure enough. And as we said before, steel-framed high-rise buildings have never totally failed from fire or structural damage. Okay, and furthermore, Building 7 was not hit by a plane.
And only had 2 small fires on it, which the engineers also spoke out and said that would not bring down the building in all 80 columns in the sub-basement, failing at the same time. So good luck with that one. Like I said, these are the ones that cannot be debunked. This is what we believe. Yeah.
Yep.
Point 4, Dick Cheney was in command of NORAD on 9/11 while running war games. Stand down order, of course. The orders still stand. Have you heard anything to the contrary? Is the quotes. Yeah. So that was from Norman Mineta testimony. Gave order to shoot down Flight 93, NORAD, in the NORAD drills. That's where it's supposed to have come from.
Correct.
Yeah, I really have a hard time for each of these, knowing what we saw and knowing what has been brought to light. Each one of these points that we bring up is just another pain point for all of us and everyone who watched it. Yeah, everyone and everyone today living in the current society because it was made because of these events. Yep.
Now, the next point, number 5, and this is the most telling for me, I guess, as far as the commission is concerned. 6 out of the 10 commissioners believe the 9/11 Commission report was set up to fail. It was set up to fail. In fact, the funny thing is, the White House refused to testify for the longest time, and then when they did testify, it was meant the testimony could not be made public. Okay, so let me play that back again. The biggest crime that we know of in history, certainly in the United States history, the White House doesn't want to testify on it, and then when they do testify, none of the testimony can be made public. Boom, right? That's a big problem for me. And who says this? There were the court chairs Hamilton and Keene. They believed there was a 30-year conspiracy. The White House did play cover-up. Max Cleland actually resigned. Okay, so the commission never had any hope of uncovering anything, and then, of course, the focus of the commission never really was to uncover anything anyway, right? All the things that we talk about, they never really looked at.
That was true. The FBI confiscated 84 to 85 videos from the Pentagon on its own, which were the Moussaoui trial, revealed these videos, released Pentagon security camera FOIA, does not show a 757 and is clearly missing a frame. That means it's been tampered with because they missed a frame, and all of the other cameras and even the cameras that were on the other buildings.
Yeah, I mean that's video evidence. You can look at yourself. I mean, for the Pentagon attack, there is something, then there's nothing, then it's a big fireball. These are frame by frame videos, which clearly don't show the entire thing because you don't see the middle bit. You don't know what's happening. Okay.
And there's a time gap in the images.
Yes, exactly.
It's 5 frames.
So,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and so that's a big problem because in the other cameras and the FBI was very quick to confiscate all of those, all the film, all the footage. It's all gone. Now, and the reason why they did that is they didn't want to hamper and haven't released it. In fact, still have not released it. They didn't want to compromise any ongoing investigations. Okay, right. But now I'm sure you can show us something. Point 7 is now we spoke about this. Osama bin Laden was not wanted by the FBI for the 9/11 attacks. No hard evidence was connecting bin Laden to 9/11. And in fact, the CIA created, trained, and funded the Al Qaeda, Taliban groups during the Mujahideen uprising against the Soviet Union. In fact, bin Laden allegedly was a CIA asset that was named Tim Osman. I went to the FBI website. The poster has been updated with deceased, right? So there's this picture, and underneath it says deceased, so he's dead. Now, this is what it says, though. This is what it says on the official FBI wanted poster, which hasn't been taken down, it only has been updated. Mm-hmm. It says Osama bin Laden is wanted in connection with the August 7, 1998 bombings of the United States embassies in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, and Nairobi in Kenya. These attacks killed over 200 people. In addition, bin Laden is a suspect in other terrorist attacks throughout the world. Reward. The Rewards for Justice program, United States Department of State, is offering a reward of up to $25 million for information leading directly to the apprehension or conviction of Osama bin Laden. Maybe we should put the assassination as well. Mm-hmm. An additional $2 million is being offered through a program developed and funded by the Airline Pilots Association and the Air Transport Association. Considered armed and extremely dangerous, blah, 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 blah. June 1999, poster revised November 2001. They're going in some detail there in the bombing, for Dar es Salaam and the Nairobi bombing as well, quite some detail. You would expect, I think, or I would have thought, you would think that they add the 9/11 attacks into this caution or reward poster.
You'd think so, Mekki, but you know what else? Guess what field office it was?
New York.
Yeah.
That's right.
They might have been aware of the incidents.
Now, this is very telling, and I've seen the banking attempts here and there. And they say, "Oh no, it's clearly the FBI knows he was involved, and it is now incontrovertible that he was in fact the mastermind." La 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 la. There's also some contention around him admitting to it, right? Mm-hmm. Let's make no mistake. We told you there was another group, a Palestinian group, in fact, that admitted. I guess, to it. Then that was revoked very quickly on the same day. But bin Laden himself did not claim responsibility, or not immediately anyway. And then later, when they did show videos of him, the thing is, there's no... How can I put this best? There seems to be some inconsistency as to the way he looks. So the Osama bin Laden of all the video footage seem to be several different people. Mm-hmm. And you can change certain things. The things that you can't change is the placement of the eyes in your skull. Okay, you can't really do too much about that. And those two guys, or even three guys, are markedly different people, both from a racial perspective as well as general appearance. Okay, have a look at the different pictures of Osama bin Laden, and you will also think, well, something is not quite right. And one of those made the statement, I guess, or then finally said, yeah, I did it. So we don't know if that is true. And again, the FBI had no hard evidence linking him to the attacks.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That is so true. Now, point number 8 in the can't be debunked, and that's hundreds of firefighters and witnesses' testimony to bombs or explosions ignored by the 9/11 Commission report. So the 9/11 Commission report bars 503 first responder witnesses. Why would they do that? Mekki, I'm just going to ask you one question real quick, and that is, if I was going to do a commission into something, would I include all information in that?
Well, you probably would.
But but I can only see that if I wanted a particular outcome, that I'd have to exclude a certain amount of information.
Yeah.
And that's why they didn't have any of the witnesses of the people who walked out through the hole in the Pentagon.
Yes,
They
sir.
excluded that testimony as well. But let's go ahead.
sir.
What's point 9?
Well, point 9 for you, Chindolo, specifically. Again, if you can refute this, I'd like to see the link. Hundreds of firefighters and witness testimony to molten metal ignored by the commission report. Okay, that testimony exists. It is there. I saw it. And I also saw the pictures of the molten metal. And it was ignored by the commission. But again, if you've got other information, please let me know what that is.
Oh, okay, so we've got point number 10. 5 dancing Israelis arrested in Mossad truck bombs on 9/11 that stated we were there to document the event.
Now, I actually remember that.
I remember
That
them
was-
chasing down trucks
Yeah.
that were said to have had bombs in them.
Yeah. And that was a story that came and went very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
on
there it
the
was.
morning,
whoosh.
that was
Oh,
during the morning.
Yes.
Yep.
Correct, sir. And then all of a sudden, boom, no more. Radio silence. I mean, what happened with that? Let us know. We've spoken about the short selling and so forth, and then the pinpointing of Israeli citizens potentially there in our previous shows. Anyway, the next one, we've mentioned this before, but it's an oldie but a goodie. Number 11. Number 11. I feel like Letterman on the countdown list. On September 10th, 2001, Rumsfeld reported $2.3 billion. $2.3 trillion, missing from the Pentagon accounting files, or cannot be accounted for. $2.3 trillion. Right now, I've seen the banking around that as well, where they say, oh, you don't understand. He didn't mean missing. He meant it can't be accounted for. There's some accounting error. La 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 la. Now, $2.3 trillion is a lot of money where I come from. It might be different for you folk over there, but for me, that's a lot of cash. And that was not really mentioned anymore after September 11th, was it?
No, from what I understand, the story just disappeared. One of the things that became obvious about it was the very place the records were meant to be kept was the place where it was all blown up.
Correct.
That has been brought out on a number of other sources. But just to say, Mickey, that if I went up to my boss and told him an equivalent percentage of the throughput of cash of our business was unaccountable or unaccounted for as just missing expenditure, the entire finance team would be gone. They would fire them and get auditors in and sort out that mess. I don't remember that happening either.
Yeah.
How can you lose that much money? How can you not account for that unless it's all black budget? They forgot to write it down to black budgets. Oops.
Ask no questions.
That's an oops. That's an oops and a half, I'll tell you.
I agree.
So, what about this one? Point number 12, 220 plus. That's not to say that that's how old they are, but there's a quantity of them. Senior military, intelligence service, law enforcement, and government officials all question the official story. That's not just to say that Mekhi and I, with our tinfoil hats, and all of the other conspiracy theorists around the world are crazy people thinking the whole thing's ridiculous. No. Let me read it again. Senior military, intelligence service, law enforcement, and government officials all questioned the official story. If we're all questioning it, maybe the lie wasn't quite good enough. Maybe it doesn't add up. 9/11 whistleblowers, patriots for 9/11, Robert Bauman, Sybil Edmonds, Albert Stubblebine, Wesley Clark, Mark Dayton, Alan Sabrowski, Cynthia McKinney, Jesse Ventura. I love Jesse Ventura, by the way. It's a man crush. Kurt Sonnenfeld. Patriots questions 911.com. there are other groups that have been put together and individuals that are all questioning what's going on.
Yeah.
We brought to you the Cuban CIA plot to be able to get people involved, emotionally connected to, a war against Cuba by, the plot was to, hijack a plane with, the sports people in it and fake it crashing into, replace it with another plane and crash it into an American landmark. If they think that way, why couldn't they actually do it, given the opportunity? And that comes to mind. Go ahead with point 13.
13. The towers were actually built to withstand the Boeing jet impact. I actually remember seeing a couple of documentaries on this. Leslie Robertson, who was a WTC structural engineer, says this. This is what he says. I designed it for a 707 to hit it directly. Could probably sustain multiple impacts of jetliners. Like a pencil puncturing screen netting. Okay, that's the analogy he uses here. That was Frank DeMartini, deceased manager of WTC Construction and Project Management. As far as, and this is a quote again, as far as a plane knocking a building over, that would not happen. Charlie Thornton, structural engineer. Okay, but forget everything else, but these are very strong buildings. In fact, once you start building buildings of that size, you have to account for a whole bunch of stuff. They have to be they can't be rigid. They have to be relatively flexible. They will sway in the wind, yes, but they can also absorb impacts. The structural integrity and the tensile strength of the material would have been calculated to the last decimal point. I can guarantee it.
So point 14, history of American false flag attacks. The USS Liberty, Gulf of Tonkin, Operation Northwoods, the OKC bombing, that's the Morrow building, the 1993 WTC attacks. Remember there was a truck in the lobby?
Yeah, that's right.
Yep. Patrick Clawson. I'm not sure what that one is. I have to Google that one. Project for the New American Century, PNAC, needed a new Pearl Harbor, rebuilding America's defenses, and 9/11 achieved those goals. This is big. This, like I just said in the previous point, is they needed an ally of the American people to go into something and for it to become part of them. And I think it achieved all the goals except for the lies were too thin.
Yeah, look, we shared this information with you before as well, specifically around the Project for New American Century, and the new Pearl Harbor information. I mean, these are the words that they use. We need a new Pearl Harbor. We need a new Pearl Harbor. Wow, really? I mean, thousands. Oh, sorry, no, that's not true. I think hundreds of Americans lost their life in the Pearl Harbor attacks. Yes. But nonetheless, yeah. So really, we need that. Okay, fine. I guess we do need that. No, I mean this is actually shocking if you think about it. By the way, Chindolo, I promise you, I've just got the link. Thank you very much. I will look at Dr. Woods, not Woods, but Dr. Woods' site, and I will look at her video and evidence. And if it is contrary to what we've brought here today, we will of course say so next week. The next point is point number 15. In one of my favorites, I have seen all the debunking information around this. She says, "Oh, I made a mistake. The heat of the moment. La 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 la." Nonetheless, the BBC correspondent Jane Stanley reported the collapse of the World Trade Center 7 building, the Salomon Brothers building, 20 minutes before it happened. 20 minutes before that. In fact, the funny thing is, she was in the caption. She was there, and the building was right behind her. It was just standing.
That's right. UK. This was broadcast in the UK.
Yeah, but it wasn't just her. The other channels, CNN, Fox, and MSNBC, also had early reports. Everybody reading from the same script. Oops. Just a little bit too early. We didn't synchronize our watches here, right? That's the first Batman rule. You have to synchronize your watches, guys. That's what you have to do.
I personally think it was supposed to fall then on screen, or have just fallen, but because of some delay somewhere, that they had to delay the pull, and so that's why there's no way that this could have been transmitted to so many people. All the news agencies unless it was by design. Yeah,
Absolutely.
they wouldn't be running the same story. Yeah, and clearly
Yep.
those people in America certainly would have known which one was Building 7. I'm pointing to it. I'm pointing to it in the graphic, and it's that really irks me. It irks me that this is what they're getting up to, and this is one of the other things. I mean, it happens over and over again through the 9/11. It's such a large case for them to have failed so many times and so many holes in it. It's more holes in a cheese grater. Yeah.
Yep.
So what are we up to? 16?
Yes, sir.
Point number 16. Flight 93. Oh, it hurts me to even talk about it. Debris was spread out over many miles. Cheney admits to giving the order to shoot down 93. And from what we could see in the field, the very little debris at all. So where was all the other debris? Where was the actual plane? This is a quote. Nothing that you could distinguish that a plane had crashed there. This was from Chris Kenichi. Yeah. Not a drop of blood, Coroner Wallace Miller. There was no plane. Mayor Ernie Stull. Riveting stuff. And I've lost Mecky. I'm going to do point number 17. Bush hesitated for 441 days before starting the 9/11 Commission. Wow, what? That's more than a year. That's a lot of time. Phil Zelikow already wrote the outline before the commission began. Steel shipped overseas, obstruction of justice, JFK and Pearl Harbor commissions were started within 7 days. Just thinking about that. The entire cleanup was done before they could start. And I think that has something to say. Mecky is still having some issues. Point number 18. The 9/11 Commission was given extremely limited funds. 15 million only was given to investigate 9/11. Over 60 million was spent investigating Clinton's affairs with Monica. Hang on, that doesn't seem balanced. I love the term fair and balanced when it's used properly. This certainly doesn't have balanced written over it all. I mean, 15 million versus 60 million for Clinton. Affair.
Yes.
My goodness, Mecky. Let's do number 19.
And now this is again when I love, and I do apologize for dropping out. Bush said he watched the first plane crash into the North Tower on TV before entering the classroom. Now
Nice.
that's impossible, right? He says, well, the TV was obviously on, right? Now, the only thing we ever saw on TV was the impact of the second plane, because at that point, a whole bunch of TV cameras had been trained on the complex. The only video evidence we have came after the fact by the French, both by the French brothers and documentary makers, I should say, as well as another gentleman who was videotaping the first impact. But there was no live footage available to us, the rest of the world. I mean, maybe Bush had that. Maybe there was a camera trained just for his benefit on the building. Once again, you could say, he got confused, and you know what? In his case, I would actually
I'd
not
believe it too.
put that beyond the realm of the impossible, right? I mean,
He
he
would, in my impression of George Bush Jr., he would get confused at a McDonald's drive-through.
That's right. The one thing, though, and we've mentioned this before, that is odd, is that the president was not immediately moved to a safe location when it became apparent that something untoward was happening with 4 planes hijacked and so forth, right? He remained there for a little while, reading My Pet Goat to the children because he didn't want to alarm them.
No, Mickey, he wanted to find out the story.
He did, didn't he? Oh my goodness! No, look, but it goes against the security protocol. Again, look, do your own research, check what it is. It is very, very strange that he wasn't immediately moved to a safe location. In fact, the vice president was moved to a safe location. Believe it or not, right? Cheney was moved to a safe location, and the protocol is for all the government leads to be moved to safe locations.
Completely. You know, the Patriot Act, the one that's ruined all of our lives, was written before 9/11. But it was signed into law October 26, 2001.
Without being read by anyone.
Yep.
Without being read by anyone, guys. That's what happened. Oh, yeah, Patriot Act sounds good. Patriot Act, yay! How can you not vote for the Patriot Act?
I can tell you how you can vote for it. We need another Pearl Harbor, Mickey.
That's what we need, another Pearl Harbor. 21, Marvin Bush. Oops, Bush? Yes, related to the other Bushes. He was a cousin. Was director of Stratasec, Securacom and QM security company, which was in charge of security at the World Trade Center, United Airlines, and Dulles International Airport. What? All three were breached on 9/11. That's a coincidence, I say. That can't have anything to do with anything. Same with the chits that were hanging in Florida. You know, when his brother was governor of Florida. Yeah, when Bush had the hanging chits there back in 2000. You remember that? Went to federal court. He won. He didn't win the election. He won the court case by people that were appointed to the Supreme Court by his father and Ronald Reagan. Yes, that's right. By the Republican elite, I should say. Yes. So they were put there by the Republicans, and then guess what? There's conservative judges, and they decided that the chits were indeed hanging, and he should get the presidency, not the popular vote, just the just the Supreme Court's vote. It's funny. It's funny. Okay. Right, so that's what happened there. Number 22, Mr. Dave.
Who killed John O'Neill? Former FBI task force agent investigating Al-Qaeda/Bin Laden transferred to Kroll Corporation to head the security just before 9/11.
He was also involved in investigation, in security issues with Clinton. So he was definitely on someone's poop list.
Well, you got to watch out with dotted line management. So they'll move you somewhere. Watch out for that. So Mackie, take note 2023.
Now, insider trading based upon foreknowledge. We've spoken about this at length as well, guys. It's a fact. You can't deny it. You can't debunk it because there it is. The put options were there. Stock was short sold. United American Airlines. Okay, and now officially never identified insiders made millions. Now we've had some evidence which we shared with you that it might have been the Mossad or some Israeli citizens that actually benefited from this particular trading. But that is a story that was stillborn and is not going anywhere.
Oh, okay. Point number 24 of 24. At least 7 of the 19 listed hijackers are still alive. 7. And that comes from the BBC. No video footage of the 19 hijackers or passengers boarding the 4 planes. Remember that? Pilots of the 4 planes never squawked the hijacking code. That's called squawking.
Yep.
If you don't know that.
Now, I actually remember that story, and they listed. In fact, they interviewed the guys on the BBC. Look, I'm still here, and my relatives were worried. I think this was a guy in Morocco. In fact, this particular one I remember, and the BBC went to interview them, and so it makes you wonder a little. So, how did they get the 19 hijackers? How do they know it's those 19? And how is it possible that 7 of the 19 are still alive? Because they showed the pictures of the guys, right? They showed the pictures on TV. These are 19 hijackers. And 7 of those guys are still alive. Did you just pull some file footage from somewhere? Get some Arab-sounding names and get some, faces with that so we can show the public we're doing our job? I mean, this doesn't even make any sense.
Mickey, it makes perfect sense. Isn't that exactly what they did?
Well, it's exactly what they did. But if I was doing this, right? If I was saying, okay, well, they've got 19 hijackers, I would at least make sure they're all dead, right? I mean,
Yeah.
never mind if they died in the plane or not, but I would make sure I get them 19 guys that are dead for sure, right? That at least some due diligence here, guys, in the security services. Pick 19 guys that are dead for sure, that cannot come back and say, hey, I never flew a plane into a building. I never did that.
That's right.
But that story was also stillborn. It didn't go anywhere. Nobody seems to have picked up on it either. You know, that's the problem with these stories. They're there, right? And then they're not followed up because, again, journalists are being paid money as well. And every year, we share this with you as well, scores of journalists die. Okay, and maybe some of the journalists that were following this evidence have been killed in unrelated accidents. You know, maybe they slipped on a banana peel. So. If you're truly a thorn on the side of the establishment and you come up with evidence that contradicts all of this, and in fact, soon it won't matter anymore. You know, in another 30 or 40 years, we will get the evidence like we got for Pearl Harbor, like the sinking of the Lusitania, you know, like the Reichstagsbrand in Germany, all those wonderful things. The evidence will bubble up because all the perpetrators will be dead. Okay? In another 30 or 40 years, it will not matter anymore, and the truth will out if we are still here, if Dave and I are wrong about the hypothesis. Okay, so it is astonishing that we would swallow all of this as we did. We just go, yeah, okay, well, you know, that sounds reasonable. The commission report said it's so. The president, the American government, would never do anything to harm us. Well, Dave and I are not saying they did deliberately to harm you, but they let it happen at the very least, because nobody was put in front of any tribunal or court. Because of the failures, the catastrophic failures of the security apparatus in the United States. Catastrophic failure for this to happen. 4 planes were hijacked. 4 planes. They went into restricted airspace, okay, over Washington. And all these coincidences, you know, oh yeah, there were military games at the same time, you know, and oh yeah, we just had remodeled this, and oh no, we can't show you any of the footage. And yeah, well, 7 of the guys are still alive, but that doesn't really matter. We found a passport. We found an unburned passport. We found in the car, we found a flight manual. If you have to learn how to fly a jumbo jet on the way to the airport, you're in trouble. Okay? You're in trouble. You're in big trouble. I mean,
I've mentioned this before, and that's, you know, if the first page of the book you're reading says, congratulations on your purchase of a 767. You know, that's the flight manual. They shouldn't be reading. They should be well versed. They should have just hopped in a seat and done what they had to do. But remember, these people were also described as not being able to successfully fly a Cessna.
Yes! Now, a Cessna, I don't know if you guys had any flight lessons. I mean, I've only ever used a flight simulator on a computer, but I'm being told the flight simulator on a computer is quite accurate, right? It's quite good. So, and you can actually do Cessna. You can jump on that. A Cessna flight simulator is very simple and straightforward. Not very many instruments. You know, relatively simple steering, this and that, and it's really a very simple instrument panel. An instrument panel of a jumbo jet, not quite so simple, right? Not quite so easy to navigate.
You can turn your head in any direction and see a dial, a gauge, a button, a slider, a knob to turn.
Yes.
It is extremely complicated, and I know because I've flown a 747 in a simulator into Kai Tak Airport, the old Hong Kong airport that you had to do the big 180 through the buildings, between the buildings, and landed at the airport. That's extremely... I have to say, I've crashed thousands of times doing it. But I successfully did it, and even that isn't enough for me to be able... And I had maybe 2,000 or 3,000 hours of flight time, real-time flight time in my simulator at home. I'll never get on board a plane and fly one. I think I would still have to do another, feel comfortable, another 5,000 hours of training.
Yep.
I know how to guide a plane, and that's pretty much the extent of my capabilities. Yeah? I'm not going to attempt a landing or a takeoff. Forget it.
Actually, that's really good insight there, Dave. And the truth is this: some of the maneuvers, and we might spend some time on that in a coming show. Yeah. Some of the maneuvers that were executed by these pilots, by the hijackers, are well beyond even experienced pilots. I mean, you have to be an extreme. You have to be an ace to fly the way they did, and to execute the turns, fly that close to the ground.
Let alone the flight capabilities of the aircraft.
Yeah, look, we shared that with you as well. I mean, ground flight is very difficult for a plane of that size. I mean,
what about the speed in which the planes were said to have been traveling? It exceeds that of the actual plane that was meant to have been used. So just to bring this out, if they'd substituted a plane, a grey military plane, that it's exactly the same model except it has a whole bunch of upgrades, like the engines for that matter, so that higher thrust capable engines would be able to travel at a higher rate of knots at that height above sea level. They're restricted because of the planes will literally just rip apart. You can't fly that. Even World War World War II planes in nosedives had to pull out of nosedives because they would exceed the airframe's limit.
Yep.
That's using the technology. Sorry, the terminology that's used by the engineers that create aircraft. So, some of those differences in the aircraft's engines were found at the scene, where the engine wasn't that was reported to have been serviced in the most recent service of those aircraft, the supposed or alleged aircraft, according to the commission. So, I still think let's just go on to the one last point, Mekki, because we've got a few minutes left.
Yes.
The passengers that escaped.
This is fascinating. I mean, there are other stories about the Titanic people, that canceled the ticket for the Titanic, didn't want to go, all these wonderful things. Now, apparently, and I didn't know this, Dave. I did not know this, but apparently, over 350 people canceled their flight on the 4 9/11 airplanes.
Hang on. But that's almost equivalent to the quantity of people that would be in those aircraft.
Actually, more. more people canceled their flight than actually flew. Okay.
Hang on.
Now I know, right?
Oh, that hurts my brain.
Now we found this excellent website, which I'm going to share with you as well. So look at it yourself if you want, right? It's interesting, but just have a look-see there. So essentially, there's a whole bunch of people, and we're not going to share everybody here with you. Next week we will share some of the names with you. But that's an astounding number of people that chose not to fly, but also groups of people, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I want to share one today very quickly with you guys. This is a group of senior Pentagon officials, and the source for this is Newsweek. On the night of September 10, a particularly urgent warning was allegedly received, and this led some senior Pentagon officials to cancel a trip that was scheduled for the morning of September 11. Okay, so there was some prior warning apparently to some people, and then same with Mayor Willie Brown of San Francisco, right? And this is again the last one I'm going to share today, and that's it. Brown was scheduled to fly from San Francisco to New York on the morning of September 11th. On the eve of September 11th, so the night before September 11th, Brown was allegedly warned that Americans should be cautious about their air travel, and that's the source for that is the SF Gate. Now, Sky is asking a very interesting question there in the chat room. Mm-hmm. Were there any people on those planes? Well, if you look at the Pentagon and the Shanksville crash sites, then the answer would have to be no.
No.
Because to the best of my knowledge, and I'd be happy to be corrected on this as well, I did not see any bodies or body bags. Nothing. Yeah. In fact, I don't know if any bodies recovered. I'm talking about the airline, the passengers specifically here, out of the World Trade Center either. I don't know that any bodies of the passengers were recovered there. So were there people on the planes? I mean, were they actually planes as such? I mean, were they commercial jetliners? A lot of people say no. A lot of people say they had no markings, right? I mean, they looked like a jet plane, but they didn't look like a commercial jet plane. I mean, was it some kind of missile, a rocket, maybe converted military transport plane that was crashed there? I don't know. So that's a good question, Sky. Maybe there are no. But my question is, what happened to the people? What happened to the people, right? I mean, in fact, it goes on to say today, what happened to the people of the Malaysian airline flight that just simply disappeared? Mm-hmm. did it actually land in Diego Garcia Air Base, right, or not? So what happens to these people, and then why maybe they tried to make everybody not fly. I mean, you read some of these things here why people didn't fly. Some were warned, some were just lucky, So
Mackie,
it's very go on.
Tinfoil hat.
Yes, please.
All right. It's quite possible that all the bookings were false, and that no one actually went on the flights at all. They were just diverted, fake flights with fake people. I can only imagine, Mackie, for a second, with my tinfoil hat on, and yours certainly firmly attached. It's if the government wants to indeed get all this stuff done, and just imagine if they had a conscience for 1 second, as implausible as that is, could you imagine if they were just paid out, relocated, go somewhere else, doesn't matter, never talk about it. That's that red and blue pill thing, where I want to be rich, I want to own an island or something.
I'm with you. yeah. Ooh,
so
man, it flew today.
It did fly. I want everyone to be happy during the week. Enjoy yourselves. Come back and listen to us next week live on air, and we'll see you then. It's bye from Dave and Mackie on show 134. Enjoy.